Have you ever tried so incredibly hard to maintain control over something, like a complex project at work or your career trajectory, or maybe even just your own personal boundaries?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right. And the very steps you took to keep that control, they actually ended up causing you to lose it completely. It's like you grip the steering wheel so tight, your knuckles turn white, and you swerve right off the road.
Yeah, it's the classic overcorrection. I mean, we see it in macroeconomic policy, we see it in relationships, and we definitely see it in corporate governance.
Oh, for sure.
You build this massive fortress to keep the enemy out, only to realize you've locked yourself inside with literally no supplies, and you basically just handed the enemy the only key.
That is exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, for you, the listener, we are looking at a founder who gripped the wheel so tightly, he crashed his entire $100 million company directly into a brick wall.
A spectacular crash, really.
Yeah, truly. His name is Eric Wang, and he was like the golden child of the smart home revolution, the visionary behind the startup called Blinder.
Right.
And his story isn't just about a failed physical product. We've got this amazing transcript and source material that shows it as a masterclass in the fiercely clashing definitions of what innovation actually means.
Yeah, and the really toxic reality of what Silicon Valley affectionately calls founder mode.
Yes. Plus, the terrifying irony of how attempting to bypass the financial system can hand that exact system the legal right to just erase you from your own creation. So, okay, let's unpack this. We have to set the stage first.
Right, because to understand how Eric Wang lost everything, we really have to understand the specific macroeconomic pressure cooker he was operating in at the time.
Break that down for us a bit.
Well, we're looking at a period where the transition from that zero interest rate environment of the early 2020s slammed directly into the generative AI boom. Money was not free anymore.
Right, the easy money was gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Venture capital funds were terrified of missing the next paradigm shift. And suddenly, every single startup on Earth was being forced through this highly specific algorithmic filter. Like, do you have AI or not?
Yeah, and Eric's defiance of that filter, it didn't just happen quietly in a boardroom, it happened on live television.
Oh, the Bloomberg interview.
Yes. Let's start at the absolute peak of his hubris. It's an interview on Bloomberg Technology. Emily Chang is hosting, and she's setting the stage for the unveiling of their new product, Blinder 3.
But to get there, she has to, contextualize the massive success of their previous product, which was Blinder 2.0.
And that product was huge, right?
Oh, it was a phenomenon in the hardware space.
Yeah.
It launched 4 years prior, and it completely disrupted the legacy window covering industry. The industry chatter at the time really highlighted their obsessive engineering.
Right.
And it had this minimalist aesthetic that drew immediate comparisons to Apple.
Which, I mean, if you are building physical hardware, that is the holy grail. If you make a toaster, a thermostat, and the market says, wow, this feels like Apple, you have essentially won the hardware lottery.
Yeah, you've nailed it.
Because it means you've nailed the tactile feedback, the unboxing experience, the user interface, all of it.
Exactly. And the financial markets really rewarded that execution. Blinder 2.0 sold out instantly upon launch. It attracted heavy hitters in the VC world.
Big names.
Right. Firms that operate with the massive gravity of a Sequoia Capital or an Andreessen Horowitz. Though in our source material, they're playfully called unfreezen, which is pretty funny.
Very subtle.
Right. But they poured in a $20 million Series A funding round, which placed Blinder at a $100 million valuation.
Okay, so enter Eric Wang. He is this newly minted Forbes 30 Under 30 CEO, and his entrance into this Bloomberg interview tells you literally everything you need to know about his psychological state.
Oh, the walk-up song.
Yes, he literally walks onto this sober financial news set with a walk-up song playing. It's the track that goes, "All the pretty girls walk like this."
It's just incredible.
The sheer swagger of treating a financial interview like a heavyweight boxing entrance. I mean, who does that?
Someone riding the massive high of being the visionary. And you hear it in his pitch. He tells Emily Chang that Blinder 3 isn't just a window covering. He says it's going to revolutionize human health.
Right, the skin cancer claim.
Yeah, he claims their proprietary material science and automation are going to prevent more cases of skin cancer than anything in the market except for sunscreen.
Which is just a wild, grandiose statement.
Very bold.
But it establishes his core philosophy, right? He views himself not as a guy selling plastic and fabric, but as a biological safeguard.
Exactly.
He is totally focused on physical utility. But then Emily Chang pivots. She asks the question that every single tech CEO was being asked at that moment. What is your generative AI strategy?
Because every company was finding a way to integrate large language models.
Right, and this is where Eric draws a very, very dangerous line in the sand. He becomes incredibly dismissive.
Just completely shuts it down.
Yeah, he states categorically that they don't get distracted by trends. He says, "We don't chase VC money that's meant for founders with no vision." And then he flatly declares, "Our blinders do not need AI."
Which is quite the statement to make on live TV.
I have to say, though, part of me actually respects that.
Really? How so?
Well, it's like being told you need to add a Wi-Fi router to a perfectly balanced framing hammer just because Wi-Fi is trending.
That's a great way to put it.
As a builder, you look at that and say, that ruins the hammer. It throws off the weight distribution, it makes it fragile, and it serves absolutely no purpose for driving a nail.
Sure, from a purely functional standpoint.
Exactly. Shouldn't a founder protect the purity and the actual function of their product against investors who just want to play buzzword bingo to inflate their portfolio's valuation?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the hammer analogy works perfectly for the physical product,
Yeah.
but it completely misses the financial reality of the factory that builds the hammer.
Okay, unpack that.
From a product purity standpoint, Eric is totally right. A window blind goes up and it goes down. It might need a simple light sensor or a basic algorithm to optimize temperature, but it absolutely does not need generative AI.
It doesn't need to write essays.
Right. It doesn't need to generate text or understand natural language prompts. But from a survival standpoint, Eric is entirely wrong.
Because of the capital requirements to keep that factory running.
Precisely. Hardware is notoriously capital intensive. You have to pay for tooling, assembly lines in Shenzhen, logistics, warehousing, component yields.
It's not just uploading code to the cloud.
Not at all.
Eh.
If you are building the world's most perfectly balanced hammer, but your burn rate dictates that you need an injection of $10 million just to keep the factory lights on for the next 6 months, you have a massive problem.
Right.
Because if the only people who hold that $10 million are currently mandated by their own limited partners to only invest in AI-integrated companies, well, you better figure out how to strap a router to that hammer, or your factory ceases to exist.
Wow. So Eric is operating in this idealized product vacuum.
Yeah, while the VCs are operating in the unforgiving reality of capital deployment.
And that reality shatters Eric's vacuum almost immediately, because his defiance on Bloomberg triggers an instant crisis behind closed doors. We go straight from this ego-driven television appearance into a brutal meeting with his lead VC.
Oh, the VC does not mince words here. She delivers a flat, non-negotiable ultimatum.
What does she say?
She tells Eric he has to integrate AI into the window blinds, or he is not going to get his Series B funding. Just full stop.
And Eric tries to push back, right? He argues that they are completely focused on their September launch and that an architectural pivot right now would be a massive distraction.
Yeah, and the VC coldly corrects him. She basically says, it's not a distraction, it's your lifeline.
Man,
Yeah.
Eric just fundamentally misunderstands his leverage here. He puffs his chest out and says, in the end, this is my company and that's the decision I'm making. I'm not going to add AI.
He really believes that the title of founder grants him absolute sovereignty.
To which the VC essentially tells him to wake up. She points out that he has no track record of financing billion-dollar unicorns and that Blinder, as a business model, is currently failing.
She points directly to his burn rate.
Now, I want to push back on the VC a little bit here. Is she actually giving him good business advice, or is this just predatory behavior?
That's a tough question.
Like, is she forcing him to ruin his product just so she can write a memo to her partners saying she secured another AI asset?
It is a mix of both, honestly. But you have to look at the structural incentives of a venture capital fund. The VC isn't managing her own money.
Right, it's other people's money.
Exactly. She's managing money for institutional investors, pension funds, university endowments, and those investors are demanding exposure to the AI boom.
So her hands are tied too, in a way.
Yes. If she goes back to them and says, hey, I just deployed another $20 million into a company making non-AI window shades, she looks incompetent in the current market.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, she knows Eric's financials better than he seems to. She knows the company's bleeding cash. In a tight macroeconomic environment, a high burn rate strips a founder of all their leverage.
So she's not just trying to ruin it for fun.
Right. The VC isn't trying to ruin the product. She's trying to make the company fundable to subsequent investors. If the next round of investors will only buy into AI narratives, then the product must become an AI narrative.
But Eric refuses to play the game. And the consequence of that refusal drops on the entire company like an anvil.
It happened so fast.
So fast. Shortly after that meeting, Eric calls an all-hands. He stands in front of his employees and announces that macroeconomic conditions have prevented them from securing their Series B.
And then he drops the bomb.
He reveals they have exactly 3 months of runway left.
90 days. 90 days until insolvency, until the servers are shut off, payroll bounces, and the company just dies.
That is a terrifying position for a founder.
It requires profound humility and really careful strategic maneuvering to survive that kind of countdown.
But Eric doesn't do humility. Instead of going back to the VC to negotiate a compromise, he executes a pivot that borders on the absurd. He announces Coin.
A proprietary cryptocurrency.
Yes, for a company that makes window blinds.
It's just wild.
I know, he pitches it to his terrified staff as their moonshot. He frames it not just as a fundraising mechanism, but as this philosophical rebellion.
A call to arms.
Yeah, he tells them it's a vote against a system that is outdated. He rails against the VCs, calling them people who have never built anything but somehow get to play God and decide who wins and who loses.
He really leans into the anti-establishment vibe.
Totally. He sells this idea that they are going to prove they don't need traditional institutions to survive.
And this raises an important question about the shifting definition of innovation in this story. Because when Eric started, innovation meant material science.
Right, the hardware. The health benefits.
Exactly. It meant physical utility.
Yeah.
But by pivoting to a cryptocurrency, Eric is no longer innovating the product. He is attempting to innovate his cap table.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does innovating the cap table actually mean in this context?
So the cap table, the capitalization table, is the mathematical ledger that dictates exactly who owns what percentage of the company and, crucially, who holds the voting rights.
Who's actually in charge?
Right. Eric realized that his VCs held power over him because they controlled the access to traditional fiat capital. So he tried to invent his own capital.
Through the coin.
Yeah. By launching an initial coin offering, an ICO, he is trying to bypass the private equity markets entirely. He is attempting to crowdfund his runway from retail investors using blockchain tokens.
Theoretically diluting the VC's influence.
Exactly, and retaining his own control over the company.
It's like realizing the foundation of your house is sinking, and instead of fixing the concrete, you try to solve the problem by building a third story out of helium balloons.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, hoping it will just lift the house up. It doesn't fix the structural rot. It just adds a highly volatile, completely unrelated system on top of it.
Yeah, it's a massive distraction.
I really want you, the listener, to think about moments in your own career where you've seen this kind of frantic, desperate strategy shift. Have you ever watched a company totally abandon its core competency overnight just because leadership panicked?
It happens more often than you'd think.
It really does, and it rarely stems from vision. It almost always stems from a sudden lack of options.
And the tragedy here is how easily the team absorbs this false narrative of empowerment. When Eric pitches this anti-establishment rebellion, the room actually cheers.
They bought it.
They completely bought into the illusion that they are taking back control. They go back to the trenches, working these grueling hours to hit the September launch date for the physical hardware of Blinder 3.
They are doing the incredibly difficult, unglamorous work of hardware engineering. They are running thermal load tests, they are dealing with assembly line tooling, and they are struggling with OTA reliability.
And we really should pause on that technical detail because OTA over-the-air updates are notoriously brutal for hardware startups.
Right, what makes them so difficult? I mean, we get updates on our phones constantly. It seems trivial.
Well, a phone is basically a supercomputer designed specifically to handle complex software states. But a window blind is just a motor attached to a piece of fabric.
Very different architecture.
Entirely. When you try to push a firmware update over a spotty home Wi-Fi network to a low-power microcontroller inside a window frame, things go wrong.
Like what?
The update corrupts, the blind gets stuck halfway, or the motor desyncs. The engineering team was deeply focused on solving these highly specific physical world reliability problems.
So they are doing the real work, but the rug gets pulled out from under them yet again.
In a major way.
Yeah. In the middle of a status meeting where the engineers are proudly confirming that they are greenlit for the September launch, Eric abruptly freezes. He's looking at his screen.
A competitor just dropped a massive announcement.
Yes. The Laqua shader.
The Laqua shader.
And Eric completely loses his mind. He watches the competitor's promo video and instantly declares that Blinder is dead.
He just gives up on it immediately.
He looks at the product his team has been bleeding for, the product he claimed would prevent skin cancer, and he calls it useless. And in a moment of staggering hypocrisy, what does he demand?
He demands the exact thing he mocked the VC for wanting.
Unbelievable.
He looks at his hardware engineers and says, "We need to add AI to our window blinds. Now."
The 180-degree flip is just breathtaking. He risked his company's entire financial structure on a crypto pivot specifically to avoid integrating AI.
Right.
But the sheer panic of seeing a competitor do it breaks his ideology instantly. He proves the VC right. He really was just a guy who didn't understand the market currents.
And this demand, it's the catalyst for the complete collapse of the startup's culture.
Yeah.
The engineering team pushes back, and they do it with highly rational structural arguments.
What do they tell him?
They point out the timeline constraint. The launch is in September, which is literally weeks away. You cannot completely re-architect the software stack of a hardware device weeks before mass manufacturing begins.
And they point out the talent constraint, too. They say, look, we are hardware engineers and traditional full-stack developers. We build motors and mobile apps. We are not machine learning specialists.
Which is very honest of them.
Yeah, they literally tell him, we do not know how to build a proprietary AI model.
And that is an incredibly healthy thing for an engineering team to admit. Knowing your technical limitations prevents catastrophic product failures.
Absolutely.
But Eric's reaction to this reality check is the definition of a toxic work environment.
Oh, it's horrible. He berates them. The team reminds him that they just spent 6 months flawlessly executing the exact feature set he demanded. And Eric just scoffs.
So disrespectful.
He says, I don't pay you guys to implement. I pay you to innovate. I need people to solve novel problems.
I mean, he takes it a step further.
Yeah. When they reiterate that this requires specialized knowledge they don't possess, Eric drops this absolutely devastating insult. He says, if you're limited by what's been done before, what's the point in hiring? I could just use ChatGPT for that.
Wow. It is a profound insult that fundamentally misunderstands what engineers actually do.
Totally.
I mean, ChatGPT can write a snippet of Python. It cannot figure out how to safely manage the heat dissipation of an AI processor crammed into a window casing that sits in direct, baking sunlight all day long.
But Eric isn't thinking about physics. He's thinking about his ego.
No.
So he immediately orders his team to find a legit AI expert.
And so the panic search begins, and they find a mercenary, an AI engineer who promises he can jam the required features in before launch.
But the price tag is astronomical.
That's massive.
The team comes back to Eric and says, this guy is very, very expensive. He wants $5 million.
$5 million for one hire.
$5 million for a single hire. Blinder is a startup with weeks of runway left. They don't have $5 million in cash lying around.
And this is where Eric makes the fatal, irreversible mistake. He tells his team, I have a lot of Blinder coins I can sell.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he orders them to hire the engineer, and he funds it by dumping his own supposed moonshot currency.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I want to talk about how this specific sequence illuminates the dark side of founder mode. You hear this term constantly on tech podcasts and venture capital blogs.
Yeah, it's everywhere right now.
It's usually framed as a massive compliment. The mythos of the visionary who gets deep into the weeds, bypasses middle management, and drives their team to impossible, world-changing standards. It's like the ghost of Steve Jobs hovering over every startup.
Right. But what we see here is the reality of founder mode when it lacks actual operational competence. It just becomes tyranny.
Yes.
The narrative describes Eric gaslighting his crew. It talks about tracking their accounts to ensure they were working through the night, basically creating a culture of sheer paranoia.
And it mentions changing equity vesting schedules.
Yeah.
Can you explain the mechanics of how a founder uses equity as a weapon against their own employees?
Oh, it's brutal. When you join a startup, you usually take a massive pay cut in exchange for equity stock options.
Right, because you want that big payout later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't get those options on day one. They vest over a period of time, typically 4 years, with a cliff at the 1-year mark. If you leave or are fired before that cliff, you get nothing.
So they have you trapped.
Basically, if a founder suddenly changes the vesting schedule, say pushing the cliff back or altering the terms of accelerated vesting upon a liquidity event, they are unilaterally changing the financial compensation of the employees after the work has already been done.
Wow.
It is a massive breach of trust.
And Eric is doing this while burning through talent and calling it a test. He justifies his erratic, abusive behavior by saying he's just disrupting the code.
Such a cliche excuse.
But really, he has no plan, no sleep, and as the situation deteriorates, no moral code. And it all culminates in the most cliche, dystopian, modern tech event possible, the mass Zoom layoff.
It's so painful to read about. Eric gets on a video call with the very engineers who spent years building his company. The people who cheered for his blinder coin rebellion just weeks prior.
The true believers.
Yeah. He tells them the company needs restructuring and tighter alignment. And then, completely devoid of empathy, he says, if you're in this meeting, unfortunately, you're part of the unlucky group, and you're all dismissed.
It's so unbelievably cold, and he offers them 1 single week of severance for every year they served.
1 week per year.
Think about that. You give 4 years of your life to a startup, working 80-hour weeks, and your safety net is 4 weeks of pay.
It's an insult.
And the execution is ruthless. Their email and Slack access are cut off while he is literally still speaking on the Zoom call.
Yes, standard brutal playbook.
He threatens them, stating that if they don't return all company equipment within 7 days, their meager severance will be withheld entirely. And then he has the audacity to close the meeting by saying, "Thank you for being part of the journey and the Blinder family."
Ugh. The weaponization of the word family in corporate culture is something every professional needs to be deeply wary of.
Oh, 100%.
A family doesn't cut off your health insurance with a mouse click.
Right.
Eric spent the first half of this saga complaining bitterly about VCs playing God and treating him like a line item on a spreadsheet.
Right.
Yet, the absolute microsecond his own power was threatened, he treated his team with significantly less humanity than the VC treated him. He absorbed the exact toxicity he claimed to be rebelling against.
Okay, so Eric has purged the original believers. He has his $5 million AI mercenary, and they sprint to the finish line. Against all odds, Blinder 3 actually launches in September.
Miraculously.
But the product that arrives is completely unrecognizable. Let's break down the specs of this launch, because it is an absolute Frankenstein's monster of tech trends.
It really is the architectural embodiment of sheer panic. The marketing copy proudly declares Blinder 3 as the world's first AI-native window blind.
AI native, whatever that means.
Right. It claims that AI isn't just in the software, it's integrated into the manufacturing process itself.
But the feature bloat goes so far beyond AI. To appease the climate tech narrative, they slapped solar panels onto the individual window slats.
Oh yeah, well, solar slants.
And they claim the blind is powered by a custom-built B1 chip optimized specifically for edge AI workflows.
It's getting ridiculous.
And the ultimate punchline, the feature that proves the company has completely lost its mind, is the crypto integration. The launch touts that because of the B1 chip and the solar power, your window blinds can trade cryptos while you sleep.
Let's just analyze the sheer absurdity of that engineering requirement for a second.
Please do.
You have a device whose primary function is to block the sun. It is now tasked with managing a solar array, running local machine learning inference on a custom silicon chip, maintaining a constant high-bandwidth connection to a blockchain, and executing high-frequency financial trades.
In a window.
In a window. The thermal management alone would make the device a literal fire hazard. It is a product built not to solve a consumer problem, but to act as a keyword magnet for every single venture capital trend of the past 36 months.
But somehow the launch event happens. Eric is on stage, bathing in the flashbulbs, projecting the image of the triumphant, visionary founder who defied all the odds.
Enjoying his moment.
But the celebration doesn't even last a few minutes. The moment he steps off stage, behind the closed doors of the green room, he is ambushed.
This part is just crazy. One of his remaining executives, clearly terrified, pulls him aside.
What do they tell him?
They tell Eric that there are rumors circulating that he is stepping down, that the board of directors has decided it is best for the company if he takes an indefinite break from day-to-day operations.
Indefinite break. Wow. Eric is completely blindsided. He scoffs at the very idea. He yells, "What board? What are you talking about?"
He's in total denial.
The executive stammers that it was a majority decision. Eric's ego just flares up. He shouts, "We fired you. No, you didn't, and you can't." He leans entirely on his perceived structural power.
He thinks he's untouchable.
Yeah, he tells them they have absolutely no legal right to remove him because it's his company, he founded it, and he holds the vast majority of the voting shares.
And this is the exact moment the steel trap snaps shut.
Yes.
The VC, the very same lead investor who delivered the AI Ultimatum months ago, steps out from the back of the room.
Oh, yeah.
And she delivers the most devastating, mathematically absolute reality check a founder could ever hear.
She looks at him and says, "You don't have the majority."
Oh, man. Eric is stunned. His brain cannot process the statement. He knows the cap table. He knows he had
He's
control.
like, how is this mathematically possible?
Exactly. He demands to know how that is possible.
Hmm.
And the VC explains the mechanics of his own downfall with chilling precision. She takes him back to his moment of panic, the $5 million AI mercenary.
Right. When Eric needed that massive sum of cash instantaneously, he didn't raise a traditional bridge round. He liquidated his own blinder coins and sold massive blocks of his personal founder shares to raise the capital.
Yep.
I want to really dig into the HOW of this. How did the VC manage to scoop up his shares without him noticing until it was too late?
Okay, this is where we need to dive into the mechanics of secondary markets and token liquidity. When a founder suddenly dumps a massive volume of an illiquid asset, like a proprietary utility token or early-stage equity onto the open market, it destroys the price.
Because there aren't enough buyers.
There simply isn't enough natural buyer demand to absorb millions of dollars of supply all at once. The market panics, the algorithm sees a massive sell-off, and the price plummets to the floor.
He tanked his own market.
He cratered it.
Ah.
But someone was providing liquidity. Someone was sitting at the absolute bottom of that order book, quietly buying up every single discounted share and token Eric threw overboard in his panic.
And that someone was the VC.
Exactly. She didn't buy them directly in a boardroom negotiation. She likely used proxy buyers or scooped them out of the automated liquidity pools.
Wow.
Eric thought he was selling into an anonymous, decentralized market to fund his independence. In reality, he was systematically dismantling his own voting power and handing it directly to the exact institution he was trying to escape at a massive discount.
It is the ultimate dramatic irony. He created Blindercoin for the express purpose of circumventing the venture capitalists. He told his team it was a vote against the system.
Yeah.
But because he lacked the fundamental financial literacy to respect the instrument he created, because he treated it like a literal piggy bank the second the pressure got too high, he built the exact mechanism the VCs needed to legally acquire his company out from under him.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
is a masterclass in corporate governance and cap table math. Founders constantly fall into the trap of believing that founder control is an inherent mystical right granted to them because they had the original idea.
But it's not.
It is not. Control in a corporation is not a philosophy. It is math. It is strictly dictated by who holds 50.1% of the voting shares.
Right.
Eric believed his vision, his Forbes cover, and his loud Twitter persona protected him. He didn't understand the physics of the financial instruments he was wielding. The VC didn't execute a hostile, illegal takeover. She didn't steal the company. Eric sold it to her piece by piece out of sheer ignorance and panic.
And the confrontation ends with a line of dialogue that is just bone-chilling. Eric, realizing he's been completely outmaneuvered, lashes out. He accuses the VC of thinking she can play God just because she got lucky on a few investments.
And what does she say?
The VC looks at this broken founder and says, I don't need to play God. I am God.
Oof, it's a brutal encapsulation of where the actual gravity lies in the startup ecosystem. The founder has the ideas, they have the energy, they have the vision, but capital is the prime mover.
Always.
Eventually, everything orbits the capital. She strips away every last delusion he has. She tells him, you are nothing. You're not a CEO, you're not a founder, you're just a kid with a God complex. You think you're changing the world, but you're not. You think you have ambition, but all you've built is a Twitter persona.
I am just sitting here, putting myself in the shoes of you, the listener, trying to process the sheer velocity of that fall.
It's dizzy.
He went from a $100 million valuation and a walk-up song on Bloomberg to being legally escorted out of the company he built, all because he was so obsessed with fighting the system that he completely ignored